Somebody who's the salt of the earth.
Your teacher, your friend.
Mothers look after their children and they fight for their rights, even if it doesn't affect them. We're fighting for our kids' rights.
Lioness. Don't mess with them.
My mother means almost everything to me. She's 91. She's been there for me all my life. She's implanted Christian values. She's never changed, and she's a rock in our life.
My favorite person in the world.
Everything she did for us was because she loved us so dearly. Never gave up on us.
She's my mother so much.
My mother has passed away, but she has been a guiding light in my life still. I talk with her. I feel that she's impacted a lot of truth and faith, and she always taught me to remember that I'm a child of the King.
Anything that she could do to help or support, she did it, and she's gone now, but I will love her forever.
Despite whatever may get in her way, she'll be there for you.
A mother is unconditional love. And this is my mom. And I love her to death.
Thank you.
And this is my mother. So if you agree with us that mothers deserve to be celebrated this Mother's Day and every other day, head to rebelnewsstore.com. Check out our new exclusive line just for the Rebel Mom in your life, and use coupon code MOM25 to save for grandma and mother all together.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Rebel News live stream on this, a Thursday, April 21st, 2022. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host today, well, let me tell you a little bit about my co-host. You know what, folks? Today is National Kindergarten Day, and my co-host...
Just graduated.
She graduated kindergarten with honors. She is always looking super duper behind the wheel of her Mini Cooper. She is the Khaleesi of Leslieville. She is Natasha Biazzi. How you doing there, my friend?
I'm killing it. You were so enthusiastic there. I think something fell off the table.
Oh, jeez. Maybe it was my resume.
We're making a mess already, but thank you so much for letting me co-host with you today, David. For those of you who don't know, we are streaming on YouTube, Rumble, Getter, Odyssey, and Super U. And be sure to send in your chats throughout the show. We'd love to read them, and we appreciate all your support and donations. How's it going?
It is going well, and I want to take care of a little housekeeping, because the last time you co-hosted with me, I was expressing my mortification that Toronto being Toronto, you go to a shopping mall, at least 85-90% of people are still wearing masks. And I thought it would be the other way around. It's incredible, the indoctrination. And I made the comment that I thought as of, I believe it was March 21st when the masking mandate ended, everybody, at least here in Ontario, would, do a feminist kind of thing, which is take their masks and set them on fire.
I did.
I'd like to do that too.
We'll do this after the show.
We should do an event like that. Yeah. And I likened it, Natasha, as you know, to the feminists who burned their bras in the 60s. And I pondered, is this actually a thing? Did that actually happen? And I did a little research. And no, it's an urban legend, folks. It goes back to a story of feminists in New Jersey about 54 years ago, if memory serves me right. There's some footage Mrs. Producer is digging up. And they were protesting the Miss America pageant. And evidently, one of the ladies removed her brassiere and tossed it, but did not set it on fire, just one.
Right.
And so there was no flames. So it's amazing. It just shows you how these urban legends gather steam. And basically, the reason for the bra removal was that it was a sign of oppression. Is that a thing? I didn't know bras were part of the patriarchy, and not identifying currently as a woman.
Oh, right. You have before, though.
I have before, but not right now. Yep. Currently, I'm identifying as a Westinghouse toaster, folks. First of all, how did this ever gather steam and traction? It's kind of like, the film you see of Bigfoot, which is just a guy in a monkey costume. And secondly, I just wonder, now that I really think about it, not that I'm getting obsessed over the issue, Natasha, but
we'll see.
Is it easy to set a brassiere on fire? I don't think it would be.
I'm not too privy to that information. I am no expert in burning bras or burning things, period. But I reckon it would be a little difficult. And you know who I think it would really infuriate? Justin Trudeau, because of the emissions. The emissions that it would produce.
And Greta Thunberg.
And Greta Thunberg. I think they would just be completely, deeply offended. Despite Trudeau being a feminist, I think he'd just be peeved to hear that us ladies were burning our brassieres.
Oh, and the last time I took a gander at Lady Menzoid's boulder holder, it was bought from Victoria's Secret, and I'm telling you, that was not cheap. And why would you want to financially penalize yourself? But again, I'm just a guy. What do I know? But I do know this. The idea of feminists burning their bras, it's a falsehood. Don't repeat it anymore, folks. We have done the due diligence.
We have. You know who else has done his due diligence? Justin Trudeau. Let's talk about him. So he burns the jet fuel flying equivalent of 3 trips around the Earth over the past 10 months. That's not even a year.
Oh, but Natasha, I'm sure there's more to this story. That wasn't jet fuel in the aircraft. Oh. I'm sure it was something like, dilithium crystals maybe?
Oh, right.
Yeah,
right.
Fairy dust.
Maybe it's like steam. It's run on steam.
Well, it's getting me steamed, and I'll tell you why, folks. This is yet another example of, basically, as they say, socialism isn't for the socialists. Marxism isn't for the Marxists. 'Twas ever thus, the double standard of those in charge preaching to us. For example, right now, and if you aren't vaxxed, you don't have a choice in the matter. Oh, the staycation. Just travel a little radius around your city. That's all you need. You don't want to go to some horrible place like Florida where the weather is beautiful and the freedom is vibrant.
Yeah.
But it is, again, do as I say, not as I do. And the second thing, Natasha, is that, and this is really disturbing, just because the mainstream media, for the most part, is allowing, the Trudeau Liberals to get away with it. Mm-hmm. The Liberals no longer hide or explain away their hypocrisy or double standards.
It's right out there for all to see. I know, and it speaks how arrogant, frankly. How completely arrogant. And he's just sitting in his ivory tower pointing at us, laughing while he increases the carbon tax, for example. And I just want to know, how much is this costing us? How much do you think?
Well, it is our money.
Yeah.
But I mean, the idea of being fiscally responsible, that's a forgotten term. But I mean, if you were to confront a Liberal about this, isn't this a double standard? And I'll give you another example. I've mentioned it many times. When you see Trudeau's motorcade come up, it's typically 6 SUVs, and there's always a minivan there. But the 6 SUVs, they're typically Chevy Suburbans and Ford Expeditions. These are the supersized SUVs. Mm-hmm. Even though they're 7 or 8 seaters, there's not 7 or 8 people in there. And they leave the heater on with the car running in the wintertime and the car running with the AC on in the summertime. And I think our beloved colleague, Sheila Gunn-Reid, she did an FOI, and it's something like there's 50, I'm going by memory, but I think the numbers are close. It's like around 50-something vehicles that the Trudeau cabinet members drive.
Wow.
one green vehicle, either a Chevy Volt or a Chevy Bolt. They're all carbon spewing vehicles. And what gets me, Natasha, is they don't hide it.
I know.
You say to them, isn't this a double standard? Isn't this hypocrisy? And they will basically say in fancy language, and your point is?
I know. They just don't get it. They don't get it. And I was reading this article, and it said, one of the quotes was, unlike other members of government and ministers who largely tend to fly commercially, Canada restricts the prime minister to a military aircraft. Why do you think that is? Like, why is Justin Trudeau exempt from these sorts of rules? Do you know?
Well, in terms of the aircraft, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
But in terms of the motorcade, I can tell you that there are so-called green alternatives. There are indeed plug-in hybrid SUVs. There are indeed other vehicles that he could make a statement. And you'd think that, see, if I'm the prime minister, and Natasha, I'm always playing the carbon card, the green card, the environmental card. Wouldn't you want to lead by example?
You keep up appearances at the very least. I know.
See, look at this. That minivan could be a plug-in hybrid Chrysler Pacifica, and the SUVs could be plug-in hybrid Mitsubishi Outlanders.
Very specific.
Well, listen, I've done my due diligence on
you
this.
have.
Now, I'm not sure. I'm not an aviation expert. Although I have played one on TV. I think the plane crashed. But you would think for his own selfish self-interest, he would say, hey, look at my fleet. It's as green as you can get. But no.
Well, yeah, I mean, and of course there's an argument to be made about green vehicles not actually being as green as they appear, of course. But I think it's interesting, to your point, that he's not, like, that he is just so clearly and blatantly going about his day, as if he pretends the climate crisis is the greatest threat to humanity, and yet he's behaving in a way that's completely contradictory. I don't really get it. I wish honestly he was playing the game a little better, because I might actually have a little more respect, not much, but a little more respect for him if he believed what he was telling us.
Well, yeah, and the reason why we are getting ever so closer to the psychologically damaging $2 a liter benchmark, and I should correct myself, I believe in areas of BC it's already gone there, is because of the Trudeau Liberals' energy policies.
Right.
We have landlocked trillions of dollars of wealth in Alberta. We can't get the product to market. We should be energy self-sufficient. We should be exporting oil to a greater degree than we are. We should have much cheaper gas at the pump than we do. And it's all about virtue signaling.
Yeah.
Globally, I believe our carbon footprint is less than 1.8% of the world. If you want to see some violators, check out China, folks. Check out India. And I think that's an incredible number for us, especially since we are a huge country and we are a cold country.
Yeah.
We got to keep ourselves.
We need the heat.
Exactly.
That's a good point.
So just for the virtue signaling of look at us, look how we're not bringing our oil to market. And, talk about two peas in a pod, Joe Biden. Under the Trump administration, folks, for the first time in 70 years, the United States was energy self-sufficient. Now you have Biden on his knees begging OPEC and Venezuela to ramp up their oil exports because of their energy policies as well. And what is it doing? Like the fact that you're not having your own domestic oil produced, you still got to get oil from elsewhere.
Yeah. You still got to get to work.
Yeah. So there is still carbon emissions, and our boss man, Ezra Levant, wrote a fantastic book, Ethical Oil. That's what we produce in Canada. That's what was being produced under Trump in the United States. And now we are supporting the most despotic, regimes in the world. Explain this to me, how this is helping anyone, least of all the planet.
Yeah, I think it obviously just plays into this weird globalist agenda that we obviously don't see what's happening behind the scenes here. I think that's the only explanation for this. There's someone else who's pushing this. Perhaps it's the World Economic Forum. Maybe it plays into the Great Reset. Ooh, conspiracy theory. No, I'm not. But I'm not too sure. That's the only thing I can understand, that there's someone else here pushing this, because you're right. Why aren't we being a self-sufficient nation? It makes no sense.
I don't even think, Natasha, you have to go to the conspiracy route, like I said, I think it is pure virtue signaling. It is, look how pure I am as your prime minister. Look how I am landlocking all that horrible carbon fossil fuels out west. But meanwhile, his lifestyle's not affected. No. He doesn't even pay his own gas bills, whether it's the entourage on the ground or his plane in the sky. We're paying that.
We front the bill. Yeah. Well, and that's my question then. Carbon tax, how is increasing a tax going to solve the climate crisis, so to speak? How is raising our taxes going to do anything to fundamentally curb the climate? Like, I don't understand I don't understand it.
It's not. And, if you look at the developments, and I'm not talking about plug-in hybrids and electric cars, folks. I'm talking about internal combustion engines, how efficient the modern day internal combustion engine is these days. I once heard that the amount of emissions coming out of a new SUV for a year is equivalent to that emissions coming out of a snowmobile for 2 weeks, right? So, this hate on for these kind of vehicles, when you actually crunch the numbers, it doesn't exist. But enough about that. I see, speaking of Trudeau, golly, rise in hate crimes connected to pandemic and greater political polarization, Trudeau says. First of all, he's always on about polarization. That's why, if you recall, Natasha, he wouldn't answer Alexa Lavoie's questions at the debate last year, because we are a polarizing force in Canada. Oh no, Mr. Trudeau, if you want polarization, look in the mirror.
Well, that was my first thought. I was like, who created this divide?
Yeah.
It would have to be from the top down, Mr. Trudeau.
And what I just said about how so much wealth is landlocked in Alberta and Saskatchewan, because he doesn't care about the West. He doesn't need the voters in the West. As long as he gets the Laurentian elites to vote Team Red,
right.
They can freeze. There's our lovely colleague Alexa, and do we have some audio for that?
Si c'était vrai et si c'était le cas, la Cour fédérale ne nous aurait pas permis d'être ici aujourd'hui. Je suis moi-même scientifique et je me base sur les faits. Ma question est la suivante. L'Israël est l'un des pays les plus vaccinés au monde. Ils sont rendus maintenant à leur 4e rappel de vaccin. Ils ne considèrent plus que ceux qui ont reçu 2 doses de vaccin sont pleinement vaccinés. Ma question est, plusieurs Canadiens ne désirent pas avoir un rappel de vaccin. Allez-vous leur enlever leurs privilèges reliés au passeport vaccinal? Et aurez-vous l'obligeance de répondre à ma question en tant que Premier ministre, ou allez-vous encore diaboliser mon média?
J'ai partagé ma perspective sur ton organisation hier soir. J'ai plus rien à dire.
Ça démontre bien qui vous êtes. Merci.
Unbelievable. And it was another question, actually, where when he condemned us, I guess it was the night before, so it was indeed demonized, he said, I won't even refer to your organization as a media organization. You are individuals that are polarizing the country. I mean, the chutzpah is unbelievable. But I wonder, and when he talks about hate crimes, are there really hate crimes rampant in Canada? Or is he basically personalizing this, as he always does, Natasha? Is he upset about the growing number of F. Trudeau flags and bumper stickers?
Yeah, that's very possible. Well, so basically, he said the plan was to increase funding toward anti-racism measures in Canada in light of recent attacks in Ontario mosques. So what I found interesting about that is, okay, so he mentions mosques, which of course, any hate crime, no one is for hate crimes. Like, everyone can agree, right or left, that we should condemn hate crimes. But what about the Christian churches?
Oh, they want the most overlooked, underreported story of 2021.
Right.
You're quite right. But let's talk about one of the most recent so-called hate crimes against the Islamic faith. It was a mosque in Mississauga, and it was condemned as Islamophobia. It was condemned as a hate crime. Folks, the person that went to the mosque with the intention of hurting others was a Muslim. So what I'm asking, Natasha, if you are a member of that faith, is it still a hate crime? If it's Muslim on Muslim violence,
right?
But you look at the tweets from the likes of Jagmeet Singh, we stand against Islamophobia. Well, wait a minute. Is it possible for a Muslim to be Islamophobic? I'm really confused.
No, that's a really good point. Well, I mean, we see this narrative perpetuated throughout the mainstream media where they like to withhold certain information about who actually, perpetuated these crimes. And what I really found interesting, too, is the April 2022 budget announced that $85 million in funding over 5 years will be related to a new anti-racism strategy and combating hate. How is a budget going to combat racism? I don't get how money has anything to do with this.
You know what? How about this? A hotline. And I'm going to be the first to use it. I'm going to say, anti-racism hotline. There's a guy in Ottawa. Yeah, he uses blackface so often, he can't even remember how many times he does it. And by the way, when he's in blackface, he likes to stick his tongue out a lot. By the way, I don't understand that, Natasha.
I don't either.
Is that Justin Trudeau's appalling belief on how black people, I guess, go about their daily business, that they have their tongues hanging out? I mean, I'm not trying to be funny here.
I know.
mean, there's numerous photos, not only the blackface, but that big kind of Rolling Stone tongue sticking out. What is he saying?
I don't know.
And to be lectured about racism from the guy, like I said, who's worn blackface, that in his own words, he can't remember how many times he's done it.
I can remember how many times I've done it. 0.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were about to drop a bombshell, and then we'd go on to the a story on cancel culture. But can we bring up that photo, please, Mrs. Producer? Look at that. Look at that. What's with the tongue? I'm obsessed about this.
It's nasty. It's nasty. But David, do you think that racism is the #1 issue plaguing Canadians? Because, of course, racism exists. Everyone can agree that racism is evil. But right now, I would argue the biggest discrimination that we're seeing in Canada is against the unvaccinated.
100%. That's an excellent point. By the way, I just want to preface something. There is this new opinion by the left that only white people can be racist.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that for a fact, folks, because there's some racism person in the London, Ontario bureaucracy, and I heard her on radio saying that racism is simply a white thing. Oh, and please don't ever say anti-racism, because that does suggest it is a white thing, and now people of color are embracing it. Racism is racism, and you can be of any creed, color, nationality, religion, I don't care, and you can hate such and such a group for whatever reason. So that's the first fallacy. But what was the question again?
Well, I just think that the biggest discrimination we're seeing right now is against the unvaccinated.
Yes.
I mean, I can't get on a plane right now to see my family in Vancouver. Many people can relate to that. And our government doesn't seem to give a crap.
And again, does it affect Justin Trudeau? He gets to fly everywhere.
Private.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we have, I think we just, that story just came up yesterday on our website, where I pointed out the incredible hypocrisy of John Tory, who ever since the vaccine came out, he's always preached, just get the jabs and everything will be okay. And he's been double jabbed plus the booster. He's due for the second booster next month.
4 in, nice.
Yeah, and I don't know when the third booster is due. And John Tory, on the eve of Good Friday, it was announced he has COVID. Now, I'm not happy about that, and I wish the mayor recovery. We're not personal in our attacks on John Tory. It's rather his ideology, but he's part of that chorus that preaches the staycation, especially for the unvaccinated. And our good friend Sue Ann Levy caught him at Pearson International Airport, getting on a flight to where, folks? Florida. Imagine that. Toronto, probably the most clamped down city during the lockdown. Ontario, the most clamped down region in all of North America, I would suggest.
Other than maybe Quebec, yeah.
Quebec and Ontario, thing 1 and thing 2 from Dr. Seuss. And here's John Tory buggering off to Florida, the land of the unmasked and the
free.
Home of the free. Yeah. Exactly. Of course, he does have a $10 million mansion there.
Oh, well, that would be nice. Can we come? Oh, wait, we can't fly.
Yeah, and who was that guy coming out? I don't know if we can find that video, but we sent, was it Mocha down there? We put our drone over John Tory's.
Right, and someone was leaving the house.
With a coat over his head. It was like the perp walk, right?
Oh, gosh.
Like, you know how you see folks, the news crews are there outside the court? When you see a guy coming out of court and he's put his coat or a garbage bag over his head, that's not a good look.
No.
I'm just wondering if that was John Tory, for goodness sake.
I guess we'll never know.
No, we'll never know. So John Tory did everything he could to clamp down on city workers who didn't get vaxxed, basically suspended without pay, a fancy way of saying you're fired, and no benefits. He clamped down on the anti-lockdown protesters, but hell, if you're Black Lives Matter, if you're Afro-Indigenous Rising, if you're the supporters of the Tamil Tiger terrorist group, you have free reign of Yonge Dundas Square, whereas if you're an anti-lockdown protester standing on the corner by yourself waving a Canadian flag, that is a hate crime, according to John Tory. This mayor is so spineless, and doubly so because he considers himself to be a conservative.
Don't they call him Jellyfish John for a reason?
I like it.
I think that's what I don't know. I think that's what we should call him.
That?
I don't know if I did, but I'm gonna take it right now. As if I think I've heard it before, but
yeah. I mean, that might be insulting to the jellyfish community, but there is an appalling lack of testicular fortitude, to be sure. Can I say that?
No.
Yeah,
no.
All right. I don't know what John is identifying these days. Maybe a jellyfish, as Natasha suggested.
Speaking of spineless politicians, should we watch this video of Nancy Pelosi? She's always got something interesting to say. Thank you.
In terms of the assault on the Capitol, democracy, and Constitution, that is something that we must seek and find the truth. Seek and find the truth of. So what was going through my mind? Well, I being raised in a family of all boys and this or that, I was like, let me at them. But, but the security did not have that same thought. and they just pulled me from the podium, and I didn't even take my phone with me because I said, no, I can handle it, because sometimes they act up, they do nasty things verbally and all that in the Congress. And I said, I can handle them. They said, no, this is different. And so they pulled me from the podium, and then we went to an undisclosed location.
I wonder when they pulled her from the podium if she turned to her right and tried to shake hands with the invisible man as President Biden did. I want to get your thoughts on what she said, but here's what I just wanted to say as a preamble. Is it not terrifying that if, God forbid, anything happened to President Biden or Vice President Kamala
Harris?
As time passes, Harris, she is the next in line to be the president of the United States of America.
Oh, my gosh. No.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Ooh.
Goodness, I don't even know what to say to that, David. That's scary. Okay, well, I don't know who's better, frankly, out of the three. I'm not sure. But
you know what? You're right. It's kind of like the tagline for the movie Aliens versus Predator, which was no matter which one wins, we lose, as humans.
Yeah.
Right? So basically, that's the story.
Oh my gosh, that's just terrible. But so I guess we should probably tread lightly here, but this was about the January 6th.
Oh, the insurrection.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she's talking about, I think, security removing her from the situation. I believe I got that right. Yes? Okay. My producer, Olivia, is nodding, so we're not making this up here. So I guess she's comparing the situation to a situation with her brothers where she'd be like, let me at him. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, but what she doesn't mention, folks, is how President Trump offered to have 15,000 members of the National Guard as security there, and it was turned down by Pelosi.
Oh, really?
They wanted this. This is a cooked-up thing. I mean, if you look at the so-called insurrectionists, I mean, give me a break. The first thing I thought, Natasha, you know the guy with the giant horns coming out of his head? I thought it was a picture from Comic-Con.
Yeah,
right?
me too.
And you had police and security waving people into the Capitol building that day. Most of these people, I mean, think about it. If that was really an insurrection, where were the guns? Where were the bombs? They did not exist. And you still, to this day, have people languishing in a filthy Washington, D.C. prison awaiting their trials. And this is shocking. Meanwhile, the year before, you had the federal courthouse in Portland being firebombed. That is an extension of the federal government. But how was that reported, Natasha? Oh, yeah. Mostly peaceful protesting.
Yeah. But don't you find it a little odd that she's likening the insurrection to just a spat with her brothers? Like, that means clearly she wasn't that afraid. That's what I'm taking away from this.
Well, yes. You know what? That's a good point. So maybe if it was about sibling rivalry, maybe January 6th wasn't that bad after all, was it? You know, it is. You know, I just wonder, though, given what, you know, I go back to the Trump administration. We talked about energy independence. We talked about low inflation. We talked about record employment, including for minority groups, blacks, Asians, people of color, women. And we had a stable world, did we not? I mean, you know, if I compare today to a year and a half ago, I think the world is a far more terrifying place when we see what's happening in Ukraine, when we see Iran on the road to getting nuclearized.
Inflation, supply chain.
Yeah. So I'm if we have any American viewers that voted Democrat, please tell me, do you have buyer's remorse?
Oh, yeah.
Yet?
From what I've heard, a lot of people who voted Democrats, like specifically because they just did not like Trump's rhetoric, have come out and said, I regret this. And at least they're able to admit that they were wrong.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you know what? That's a very important point. The mean tweets. Oh, Orange Man makes mean tweets. You know, and Ted Cruz, he nailed it. He said one of the biggest demographics moving away from Republicans in the last federal U.S. election were college-educated, suburban, white females.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to mention her name, but Lady Menzoid's best friend lives in Simi Valley, California, not far away from the Ronald Reagan Library, if you can imagine. And she voted Republican right down the voting card, except for president.
Really?
Yes. And she fits that demographic. Conversely, a demographic moving away from their traditional voting group, which is Democrats, is the basically blue-collar male workers. You know, these are the guys, you know, the lunch bucket brigade, who realize the Democrats aren't about, you know, infrastructure jobs like building pipelines. That's the Republicans now, and they move that way. But I guess there were more suburban, white, college-educated females making the shift to Democrat in the last U.S. federal election. And like I said, well, I know from Lady Menzoid's best buddy, she has buyer's remorse. And basically, you say, why? Why did you switch that? Well, you know, those confrontational tweets. What? Despite all the tangible accomplishments I just listed, Natasha,
which I'm sure they were aware of, by the way. I'm sure they knew of his accomplishments and just they couldn't let that personal, you know, disdain for his personality get in the way.
You know what? That's an excellent point. And maybe they assumed the accomplishments would carry on with the Biden administration. And they haven't. No. He's destroying that country.
Yeah, he truly is. Yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the primaries and in the next election.
Well, you know what? I personally predict it's going to be a generational slaughter of Democrats, but I'm wary of saying that because once you start publicizing that narrative, there's so many people that would vote Republican and they go, yeah, my daughter's got soccer practice. I'm not going to be able to make it, but it's going to be a slaughter. It's going to when you start assuming, that it's going to be an avalanche, that it's going to be a landslide. Guess what? It doesn't happen. So people, it's all about getting out the vote. And as November approaches, and it'll be here before we know it.
Oh, yeah.
Let's hope for regime change.
Yes, definitely. And
at least in the House.
A lot of people say as well that Twitter played a huge role, social media played a huge role in this election. And of course, you know, kicking Trump off Twitter afterwards, I think really kind of shed some light onto how much social media controls the narrative when it comes to voting. So maybe we should talk a little bit about how Elon Musk is still considering purchasing Twitter.
And before we do, you know, isn't it astonishing, Natasha, that the former president of the United States is permanently banned from Twitter, and yet you have mullahs that preach terrorism in the Middle East, and that's okay? I mean, has the left lost its mind?
Yes, absolutely. That's the only response. Yes, of course they've lost their mind. It makes absolutely no sense. But people are really hopeful that Elon Musk is going to, you know, bring free speech back to Twitter. What are your thoughts on that, just before we get into the article? Like, do you really think he is a billionaire, so I always feel like I have hesitancy trusting these people, but I hope his heart's in the right place.
Well, yeah, and I think it is, and I stand to be proven wrong. It's kind of like my position with Pierre Poilievre. My spidey senses are saying that he is going to come as advertised, and in the not so distant future, should he become prime minister, well, we're going to find out if he says what he means and means what he says, or if he's Andrew Scheer, Aaron O'Toole, not coming as advertised. So with Elon Musk, I think, I mean, he is so busy with so many things, Tesla, SpaceX, he's a multi-billionaire. He doesn't need Twitter. And he's overpaying for it, I think, by most analysts. So what would be his rationale? And I think it is to save free speech. And by the way, Natasha, let's not forget, going back some 15 years ago or so, whether it was YouTube or Google, Facebook, Twitter, all the social media giants that were little sprouts back then. Remember what they said, folks? Come one, come all. This is the Wild West of free speech. Oh, and by the way, bring your content. Hey, what a business model. Free content, eh? And it was all one big happy family, wasn't it, Natasha? And then when they got critical mass, what happened?
Yeah.
They turned into censorious thugs. They always seemed to be on the left of center, and suddenly those on the right, you were eliminated. And wouldn't it be great to have just one of those mega platforms, namely Twitter, if Elon Musk is sincere, to have it as a free speech platform again?
Oh, yeah. I think it would be such a relief, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
It would be wonderful. And I guess there's a lot of question about whether he'll bring Trump back and all that. What do you think?
100%. Yeah. That is just like Biden on day one in office killed the Keystone XL pipeline. I am absolutely, I will lay odds on this. Much like I'm betting the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to lose in the first round of the playoffs, and I got a bet with Lincoln J. So I'm looking forward to my steak dinner come next month.
Nice.
But anyway, I will bet you, as a sign of there's a new sheriff in town, Trump's Twitter account is reinstated 100%. You want to take a bet?
No, yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay, how much?
You buy me ice cream?
Oh. Okay, I want money. Okay. So
I'll need a raise.
You don't think you'll bring Donald Trump back then, eh?
I'm not sure. I wonder what that could mean for him professionally if he does.
Professionally, Elon Musk is a multi-billionaire. He is basically in honey badger mode. He doesn't give a flying F, if you know what I mean. And you know what else? You know, Elon Musk, I detected he was very much loved until this Twitter takeover by the left. You know, green vehicles, electric cars, you know, going up into the final frontier, given that I guess NASA's just concerned about manufacturing merchandise these days as opposed to putting a man on the moon. And now oh boy, have you noticed the media coverage on Elon Musk? Even in the business pages, because I saw a headline the other day, it was about Volkswagen's EV plan, EV being electrical vehicle, to crush Tesla.
Oh, good luck.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? It is getting incredibly competitive in that realm, and he's going up against the super big boys in the sandbox. So, yeah, there it is. Volkswagen is coming for Tesla. Here's how it plans to dominate the U.S. market. And if we went back in the DeLorean DMC-12 with the optional flux capacitor to just last year, that Porto was probably writing puff pieces about save the environment, buy a Tesla. Oh, what have you done for me lately?
Yeah, it's crazy how quickly the narrative shifts when you go up against the media monster, hey?
Yeah, and it is about the ideology. And, you know, I talked about this with our beloved Sheila Gunn-Reid on Tuesday. You know, folks, in case you don't know, we have been, for more than a year now, demonetized by YouTube. That used to be $400,000 a year coming into our operation. And YouTube's take was a hefty commission, Natasha. 1/3.
Wow.
1/3 of $400,000. I mean, that's nothing to YouTube. It's a lot of money with me, I'll tell you this much. But that proves their demonetization of Rebel News had nothing to do about the money. They were making lots of money, relatively speaking. It was about the ideology. And the sickening thing is they sent us, they said the reason is for violating the terms and conditions of the community. Oh, okay, what's that? Safety. Oh, really? We had our lawyer go through the safety pages. I think it was about 43 pages with a fine-tooth comb. You can't advocate suicide. We don't do that.
Yeah.
You can't advocate parkour, where you jump from rooftop to... We've never done that.
That's fair.
You can't advocate gay therapy, conversion therapy. We've never done that. Basically, we went through everything about why we were allegedly unsafe. We said, we've never done anything you said. And their answer, Natasha, you're still demonetized.
Do you think part of the reason why these big tech monsters work so hard to censor us is because they know our ideas are good and they don't want them to spread? Because, I mean, really, if they really thought our ideas were so horrible and egregious, they just let them stand so that people had the opportunity to choose for themselves.
Well, Natasha, what I always say about when you look at these phony hate laws, when you look at, you know, the social media censorious thugs, kicking people off platforms, suspending them, whatnot. We have always had laws when it comes to media and publishing, and that's what you're doing when you post a video, even if you're an individual. And it's called libel, slander, and defamation. So if somebody goes onto a social media platform and says, hey, such and such is a pedophile, well, you know what? See you in court.
Right.
We've always had a governor on free speech when it comes to libel, slander, and defamation. This is censorship based on ideology. Mm-hmm. You are not part of the left-wing lunatic chorus, so you are banished. And to think this is happening, I'm sorry, in the land of the First Amendment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's scary. It's scary to see how this is trickling into Canada as well. Right?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. But there is a little bit of hope on the free speech end, actually. There is a story here about how trans women will not be automatically female in diversity quotas anymore. This is exciting.
Really? What's this story?
Okay, yes. So basically, trans women, so there was a strong backlash on the trans issue that forced the regulators to stand down. So ultimately giving UK-listed companies the flexibility to decide how they report their female quotas. So I guess essentially, just because you identify as a woman, you don't need to be considered one necessarily, basically, I guess is the gist of the article. So I guess someone complained and then they won.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I would say it seems that the UK, the tide is turning there in terms of what I call transanity, you know, having biological males considered to be females. The Commonwealth Games, and really, like, who cares about, I mean, who gives a
I don't even know what that is, so.
But they were going to consider allowing biological male cyclists to compete with the females.
Right.
And they said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to go down the Leah Thomas route.
Yeah.
And the NCAA, you should be ashamed of yourselves for allowing that freak show to happen. But that's more good news.
Yeah.
And I'm actually surprised.
Me too. I mean, I know even a couple weeks ago, Boris Johnson came out saying that biological men should not compete against women because that's just a sensible viewpoint, was essentially the words he used. So yeah, it is really exciting to see that the tides are turning there. And I think it also speaks to the fact that it's important to speak out about this stuff and keep fighting back, because clearly we can win.
We clearly can. And, you know, I when I was filling in for Ezra on this show, my monologue was about how, you know, in 2022, you know, the fable of the emperor's new clothes, and it was only one lone little boy that said, hey,
He told the truth.
King's naked, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's not an invisible cloak. And where are the little boys crying out against the emperor's new clothes these days? I mean, I guess that fable might be considered hate speech today. But the fact of the matter is, it is just about taking a stand.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, going back to, I think it was 2006, we were unfortunately early adopters of transanity here in Canada. There was a male mountain biker out in British Columbia that got to ride with the females. And guess what, folks? Not only was he coming in first in every race, he was also setting speed records.
Of course.
And there was one incident in 2006 where he got the gold medal, the two real females got bronze and silver, and the boyfriend of the silver medalist winning cyclist went up to her and put on an oversized T-shirt that said 100% real female. Oh, and there was repercussions, all right. She got suspended by the Canadian Cycling Association for saying the truth. She is 100% real female. Maybe we have that photo coming up. So I think if the Canadian Cycling Association were the authors of The Emperor's New Clothes, the little boy gets the shite kicked out of him for saying the truth. That's how that fable ends. But there, I think we have a picture. There we go. You see there. And look how that so-called, you know, female in the middle, Michel Dumaresque, I believe, was his name, his adopted name. Look how he towers over them. I know there's a slight advantage on the podium for but clearly a man.
Some biological differences are clearly there.
Yeah. So why is there, I'm going to say this, Natasha, and I want your opinion as either a woman or someone who identifies as a woman.
You can identify as a woman.
And what a woman.
You are one, or you aren't, but yeah.
But it seems to me that those embracing trans acceptance when it comes to female sports, female penitentiaries, the list goes on, what they're really embracing is misogyny.
Yes.
They are putting women at a disadvantage and sometimes in danger. We've had males pretending to be females go into prison, sexually assault and impregnate female inmates. Where is the feminist movement on this? Because when I come up to them, they just chant in your face like imbeciles, trans women are real women, trans women are real women. What happened to standing up for the 4 billion people on this planet that are actually biological females?
Yeah, I don't really know. I think the feminist movement has clearly been corrupted, obviously. I think part of it is the fact that people don't want to be deemed a transphobe. They don't want to be deemed a bigot. And Kat and I talk about this a lot on our show, Misunderstood. This is kind of our beat. But I'm not too sure, but part of it I think really is the social pressure aspect of being canceled, because we know cancel culture is so humongous in the Western world. And I think that people just don't want to ruin their lives for telling the truth, unfortunately.
It's a crying shame, and I see super producer Olivia has already found that article. I was just, lest anyone say I was exaggerating, but look at that. 2 females impregnated by a transgender fellow inmate. I mean, I think if you have that which is known as a penis, you are not a woman in any regard. That is a disgrace. And again, I'm asking for, in terms of the corrections industry, where is the little boy calling out the naked emperor? Where is the men and women of substance saying, no, mate, I'm sorry. You're a man. You are not going to serve your time with biological females.
I think we are seeing more people speak out about it. I mean, J.K. Rowling is someone, Meghan Murphy is someone, many Rebel News journalists and commentators like myself and Kat and you, we all are speaking out about it. So I do think that there is a shift. I mean, Twitter is exploding with stuff about Leah Thomas right now, thankfully. I mean, accounts are being removed like every day because of this topic, because people are pushing back.
But that's the issue, though. It's one thing for the great unwashed masses to voice an opinion. I'm talking about whoever heads up the NCAA.
Yeah.
That's your call to make.
Yeah, again, I really think it's a cancel culture thing.
Yeah.
I think that people think they're being empathetic and kind, and what they're not realizing is you're only favoring one side, and multiple people are being implicated because of this for one person and their gender dysphoria.
And I'll tell you another thing, Natasha, as I mentioned in my monologue for Ezra on Monday, the fact is that there is a linkage to mental illness and transgenderism. And I speak of the disproportionate number of transgender people that also suffer from autism and Asperger's syndrome. And yet those scientists making those links, and it's all based on data, not opinion, they are condemned as being transphobic. Whatever happened? Because it seems that for the last 2 years, the left has said, follow the science, you Neanderthal, when it comes to COVID. Why can't we follow the science on this subject?
Again, I think it's a sympathy, empathy, woke BS thing where people just are scared to tell the truth. And I think that's the worst thing. That's the worst thing that's ever happened. I think this is so important that women pay attention to this, because we are being erased.
Yeah.
We are effectively being erased. But there is another story that maybe we should get to before we maybe read some chats,
Sure.
just about the university. So there's a professor basically who was reprimanded for refusing to use a student's pronouns, and he, I guess, took it to court and won.
I love this story.
Yeah.
And he was awarded, folks, US $400,000.
Yeah.
I think that might be over $1 million Canadian right now. But yeah, it's one thing. This is the issue. You can't mandate somebody, and I know, Professor Jordan Peterson goes on about this. You can't mandate people to say things that they don't believe in, and that was the issue here. This professor, if you read the story, he was incredibly accommodating to all his students, straight, gay, trans, etc. But he wasn't going to play that game of, Z, Zer, Zur, all that alphabet soup madness. And the university was forcing him to, and he said, no, I'm taking to court. And he won. But what's despicable about this, Natasha? If you read the story, the university is doubling down. They still say, no, we're right. This was all about creating a safe environment. And I mean, where does that, have you noticed how safety has been corrupted? A safe environment. To me, a safe environment, if one of these wires fell down from the ceiling and it's a live wire, that's an unsafe environment. But being called miss when you're female, but you think you're a guy, that's not unsafe.
Well, I was going to say, too, if being misgendered is the worst thing that's happening in your life, like, your life must be pretty easy, like, frankly. Yeah. We shouldn't play into this, because it's just creating chaos, and words matter, and words have meaning, and we can't lose sight of that. And I think it's interesting to see that this professor fought and won.
I am so happy, and I hope he has. I mean, some of that $400,000 is going to go to his legal fees, but I hope he buys like a nice little sports car and parks it prominently on campus, saying, "You see what your fascism resulted in? New set of wheels for me. Oh, and by the way, it's not a plug-in hybrid or electric either. It's spewing fossil fuels, right?" But anyways, again, folks. Good news in terms of the tide turning when it comes to transanity. And by the way, I do want to clarify something. If you are a male or female and you want to go through gender reassignment surgeries, you want to slice and dice your genitalia, you want to take hormone shots, and you just want to go and live your life in a downtown condo or out in the suburbs, you want to pretend it's Halloween 24/7, 365 days a year, I have no problem with that. If you believe in freedom, do your own thing, even if it's that.
I think, as long as you're a consenting adult,
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you say, now I am changing the rules in sports so I can clean the clocks of
Healthcare.
biological females.
Yeah.
Now I am changing the rules of story time to have drag queens come in and I'll call it grooming. Basically normalizing something for 5, 6, 7-year-olds that is really
exploiting
not normal
them
at
to
all.
sexual things. Yeah,
That's the problem. It is the radical transgender movement, and it's a fringe of a fringe.
Oh yeah,
Natasha.
They are completely the minority, and I think that's what's exciting about this is a lot of people who are actually transgender also agree with us, and they are speaking out about the crap, and that's really good. And I think you need to keep doing that if you're a transgender person, because your voice, like Blair White, is someone specific who is very outspoken about this, which is great. We need that, and most importantly, my issue with the whole movement is, like you said, if you're a consenting adult, go for it. But the children, we just need to preserve their innocence because. Kids do not need to be exploited to these ideologies. They don't need to know about sex in general, okay? They just need to be kids.
100%.
Yeah.
And finally, sports, let's be honest, it's fun and games. It's not right that female athletes are, getting slaughtered the way they are. But when it comes to incarceration, that's a health and safety risk.
Yeah.
When it comes to female inmates, a lot of them are there because they've been abused through their lives, and you have some muscular 6'4" dude with all his functioning wedding tackle there, and that's your roommate. What's to stop him from raping you? What's to stop him from impregnating you? That is insane.
Yeah, it's
Natasha.
sickening. It's sickening. Yeah. What a fun note to end on. Just kidding.
But the tide is slowly turning ever so slightly.
Yes.
You know what? Time flies when you're having fun, and I'm having fun with you. I'll tell you that
shucks.
We're 3 minutes to the hour, so we better get to some of these
I think
chats.
so, yeah.
Okay.
Do we have any chats, producer Olivia? Thank you so much. This is from Fraser McBurney. Thank you for your $5. It is now time to ticket $850 to mask wearers like we were ticketed for standing too close. I think it is.
You know what? I would disagree with that. And I'll tell you why.
Too.
You want to wear a mask?
Go for
wear
it.
Yeah, you don't want to wear a mask, don't do it. But you know what? It was a fascinating talk radio topic I was listening to the other day, and it was a story. I don't know where it appeared, but it was someone who's a devout mask wearer, even though you don't need to wear a mask, at a cafe. And the complaint was, I come up to those without masks, and I very politely tell them to put their mask on.
Oh.
Right?
Stunning and
that
brave.
better not happen with me, I'll tell you that much, folks. I'll still be civil.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with that? And the host had an incredibly great analogy, Natasha. Sometimes even being polite isn't good enough. And the example he gave, say I'm on the beach. I see a woman suntanning in a bikini. And I come up to her and I go, hi there, could you please, pretty please, take your bikini top off because I want to gaze upon your breasts? Is that okay? Thank you very much. No, that's not okay. Even though you framed it with such niceties and polite language, it is offensive and it's unwanted. Yeah. So anyone out there who is still clinging to their mask when the law says you don't have to, even if you're asking politely, know your role and shut your mouth, as The Rock used to say.
Yeah, I agree. And I would be maybe open to finding parents who are still masking their kids, though. Sorry. Controversial, but
I don't get that.
Yeah, but I'm not a parent, so. Yeah. I am judging you, though.
Yeah. Remember we had a miscommunication and I thought you were pregnant the other day? And how did that happen?
I don't want to talk about this.
Okay. But she's not.
He's
folks.
calling me fat.
You're the antithesis of fat.
Let's get to another chat. Okay. This is from O-Truck Maf K. Liberals have no principles, just communism by any means necessary. I mean, I wouldn't even argue it's communism. I think it's globalism. I mean, given his policies are all, outreaching into other countries and nations.
You know what? I'm on the side of the viewer, communism, and the reason why I'm saying that, it's not speculation, Natasha.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
It's the words of Trudeau himself some 7 years ago. an admiration for the basic dictatorship in China. Now, he wasn't prime minister at the time, but can you imagine, folks, somebody in the Western world with aspirations to become prime minister of a Western democracy admires China? I mean, but the other thing, too, as we showed with his lavish lifestyle, Marxism ain't for the Marxists,
No,
is
it ain't. No, it ain't. Do we have any more chats? This is from Snowy Roof. Thank you for your $5. David, it is not virtual signaling. He is a Klaus Schwab and George Soros puppet. In order for there to be an antichrist, there has to be a one world government.
Jeez, that's a lot to digest there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Whoever you are, I agree with you. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I don't know, when we go down the road of the Antichrist, I mean, are you implying Justin Trudeau is the Antichrist?
I don't think so.
I wouldn't go that far.
No, I don't think he is.
But
yeah.
I think he would, just like he endorses communist China, folks, I think he would endorse the policies of the Antichrist.
Yeah, he's helping push the agenda along, let's say. Next chat. This is from Fraser. Thank you for your $5. Could the rebel investigate the rash of fires at food plants in the USA and Canada over the past 6 months? Huh. I haven't heard
of that.
Me too, but that's good to know. We'll write that down. Thank you.
Okay, then. Well, you know what? Thank God, then, that Mr. Bill Gates is the biggest owner of American farmland.
Yeah.
Surely
Not
he
a
won't let
coincidence.
us starve. And by the way, biggest shareholder, I understand, of CN Rail, too.
Really?
Yeah. So
well, then, that's interesting.
yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, folks? As much as they're all about new age technology in terms of getting around and eating bugs for our diet.
Yum.
No, the Grand Masters are clinging to old school investments like agriculture and the process to get the goods to market. That would be the choo-choo train. So, yeah, it's just amazing to me.
Yeah. No, fascinating. Okay, this is from Aqua Skies 3636. Thank you for your donation. That clip with Alexa is so telling. Thank you to both of you and Rebel. Aw, thank you.
Yeah, Aqua Skies, and I can tell you this, not only was it disrespectful to Alexa, and the night before, I believe it was Tamara Ugolini that got to ask a question, it is disrespectful to all our viewers, more than 1.5 million on YouTube. It is disrespectful to Canadians because twice, folks, in 2019 and 2021, we were barred from going to the parliamentary debates, and we got a federal court order. Our two lawyers, who are just absolutely super smart and fantastic and hardworking, we went up against 8 government lawyers, funded by your taxpayers, by the way, and we won both times. So 2 different federal judges said, we are a legit media organization, let them in. And like a sore loser, Natasha, Justin Trudeau says, I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. I'm not answering your questions. That's despicable.
Well, it's also gross because he is spewing this hatred towards people who pay his salary.
Yep.
Like, at the end of the day, we're all taxpayers, whether we voted for him or not. And he needs to respect all of us, for paying his freaking wages.
Yeah, but he doesn't.
No, he surely doesn't, yeah. Do we have any more chats? Last one, all right. This is from Lone Yukon. Why is no one asking the political candidates where they stand on the UN and the WHO health treaties, obvious attempts to govern sovereign countries by bureaucracy afar? Yeah, I think that we haven't had too many chances, I don't think, to really get in and ask those nitty-gritty questions yet. I think a lot of the leadership tour has been more so meet and greets and stuff, but I know that our journalists are definitely going to be asking those tough questions as the campaign goes on.
Oh, well, don't count your chickens before they're hatched, because I can tell you, my friend, Sheila Gunn Reid has gone to UN climate change conferences abroad. I think the last one was in Poland. Yep, Louis Brackpool. And here's the problem. Well, with the Canadian journalists, we can't get in because, well, Justin Trudeau, our own government, has banned us. The same was the case back in 2018 when me and the original super producer, Justin, went all the way to Morocco. Morocco, can you imagine? And that was the Immigration UN Summit. We go to the the gates, and they say, sorry, your government is denying you access. So we went all the way to Morocco. But it's interesting because that doesn't mean we go home empty-handed. And I remember, Justin and I, what we were doing was we were filming the parking lot, and we were noticing all these delegates and all these bureaucrats coming to the conference, typically in 7- and 8-seater SUVs. One person is in the vehicle, and guess what, folks? You think they killed the engine while the diplomat was off giving his or her speech? Oh, no. They're running with the AC on full blast. Yeah, that's what's happening in Morocco. Meanwhile, at the same time, roughly, in Poland, the same UN types are getting preachy about climate change and the war on the planet. Can you imagine? They simply don't practice what they preach.
No.
But we try to go there. And our own government stymies us. Maybe when there's regime change in Canada, we will actually get in the door of some of these conferences.
Yeah, well, God willing. God willing.
There you go.
I think that's all the chats we have for today. I think that's the show.
Well, we've gone 6 minutes over. We're certainly not on CBC's clock. I mean, we would already be noshing our lunch by now if we were. But you know what, folks? Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate that. Thank you, especially to those that gave a financial stipend. It's how we keep these bright lights on. And of course, thanks to Olivia, our super producer behind the board there. And thank you to you, my friend, Natasha. I think we've hosted before, but as the Jacqueline Suzanne book title once read, once is not enough.
Certainly. Well, hopefully we'll get to do this again. And yeah, thank you guys so much. Tune in tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Time for our daily live stream. I don't know who's hosting, but it'll be fun.
It'll be a surprise.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, folks, as always, stay sane.
Talk about the success of Canada, the things we do well, the things we do better than any other place in the world, without talking about the success of our diversity. The fact that people come to Canada from every corner of the world with every different background you can imagine, and are there not just for their own community, but for all of their neighbors, is something that makes us richer and better as a country than just about any other place in the world. Because if you think about it, you don't learn the most from someone who's just like you. You have a friend who grew up on the same street as you, 2 doors down, has the same kind of family background as you, and you like to play the same games. You have a great time together with that friend, but you don't necessarily learn a lot of new things. Where we learn new things, where we challenge ourselves, where we become better, is when we learn from people who are different from us. And that's been the story of success of Canada. That's been the story of success of this community. And when I think of what the Muslim community has brought to Canada over the years, the way you have contributed in innumerable ways, yes, with extraordinary institutions like the Cambridge Islamic Center, but also the way you've contributed to the entire country, we are all better off for it. And Canada can continue to grow and learn and be better with that.